G'day, legends. It is Jai, that Aussie metal guy here with Crannk.com. And for my 666th interview for Crannk, I'm joined by my Crannk brother in arms and host of Killer Tube, all round metal madman killer. And together, we're stoked to be chatting with one of the UK's most emotionally intense and forward thinking heavy bands, Conjurer. These guys are absolutely bloody unreal. I've been a fan of you guys since the Páthos album. Absolutely amazing. We do have Brady Deeprose, guitarist and co-vocalist, hanging out with us to talk all about the upcoming album Unself, which does drop October 24th via Nuclear Blast. Brady, thank you so very much for joining Killer and myself, mate.
No worries. Thanks for having me. And interview number 666 feels like a very high honor.
Dude, I know, man. I was like, dude, it has to be someone pretty fucking awesome, dude, and it is you, man. So it's an absolute bloody pleasure, man. Brady, every Conjurer record does feel like it captures a moment in time for the band. Mire felt like a rival. Páthos was a little more reflection. Unself feels like revelation to me a little bit. How did this one take shape emotionally and creatively compared to what came before?
Yeah, it was interesting because sorry, I'm gonna turn my phone off. People are blowing me up. Um, it was a very different process for us. Like you say, like Maya was us really, going in with eyes wide open, not really knowing what we were doing at all, just happy to be in the room. And then kind of Pathos made during the pandemic under the weirdest of circumstances. And so this was the first time where we felt like a band that knew how to make a record, had the time and space to do that, and so could really just focus on the kind of creative expression as opposed to anything else. So yeah, for me, this was us just getting in a room together and going, okay, what are we capable of when we're not hampered by our own ignorance or our kind of the circumstances of the world. And emotionally, Danny and I both wanted to be a little bit more direct on this record because we were for the first time kind of speaking about real things and not just hiding everything behind metaphors and flowery language. Like our music's always been quite personal, but it's never something we've addressed head on before. So yeah, it was a very different process for us. It was a very kind of creatively exciting process, and it has kind of for me at least, completely shaped how I want to make records moving forwards. Like this felt good throughout the whole process, and that is not something I can say for anything we've done before.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, Hang Them in Your Head was brutal when it hit.
Mm.
Um, and just heavy. But then Let Us Live hit, and it's so emotionally different and emotionally charged. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think that, you know, we when we started the band, we were Danny and I specifically were like kids that were just so stoked to be finding out that there was metal that was heavier than metalcore. Like we were on this kind of like voyage of discovery and finding about doom and stoner and sludge and hardcore and you know finally discovering death metal that made sense and all of this stuff. It was just like this explosion of like color in our heads. And so the natural instinct is to lean into that. It's like we want to be heavy, we want to be this, that, the other. And really over the last 10 years, like a big part of our journey and kind of maturing has been the realization that heavy is not like a sonic thing. Yes, you can hear a riff and go, "Oh my God, that is amazing." But there is just so much more to it, and it is about dynamics, and it is about um emotional weight, and it is about going, okay, what can we, how can we make someone feel other than just pulling a horrible face and nodding their head. Like, it is become about so much more than that. So a song like Let Us Live, that when you break it down for 90% of the runtime is just chords. Like it's not nothing crazy musically, but it's something that I don't think we'd have been capable of, even on the last record, just committing to not having any boundaries on what the sound is and really going, okay, we have a specific message with this song that we want to convey. How do we best do that? And how do we craft the song around the the energy that we want it to express? Yeah, that kind of shift of intent with the songwriting is something that has been really freeing. And not that we've ever had any constraints on the genre of the music. I think it's always been pretty open to whatever we wanted to try. There were definitely things on this record that I reckon, 5 years ago we'd have been like, well, there's no way we could do that. Like that wouldn't work. Or, just that like not being willing to fully embrace the mantra that we always talk about, which is that we do whatever the song requires. Like it doesn't really matter. We never talk about genre really as a band through the songwriting process. It is all about what technique or what type of sound or what thing does this song need to achieve what we want to do with it. So it's just been a case of being confident enough to really lean into that on this album and go, yeah, like it needed to go in this direction, so we tried it. And also giving ourselves the time, we spent a month in the studio. We had time to waste 4 hours trying something stupid just to see if it would work. And more often than not, that stuff kind of paid off and made it onto the record. So yeah, like I say, it's been quite creatively exciting for us. And I think the band's sonic palette just continues to evolve and expand.
Exactly. We did touch on this before you jumped in. The way you use atmosphere to build up those heavier moments, and the way you start this album with the use of the gospel song, "The World Is Not My Home," it just builds up this amazing atmosphere. So that when it kicks into the all apart, you just like hit with the amazing vocals and the heaviness and the use of atmosphere. The way you guys always, I'm using that multiple times because you use it so bloody well because it brings out the real heavy parts. And you did touch on that. It doesn't have to just be in your face all the time heavy. You let those moments breathe and they come back and they feel twice as heavy and you feel the emotion. That's what I really felt with the vocal delivery for you guys, and especially with Danny as well. The emotion, you feel every note from you guys. I felt that with the Páthos album, but again, everything has stepped up a whole lot more. The use of atmosphere, the intensity, the emotion in the vocals, and the heaviness, as well as the moments in between that does let it breathe on these songs.
Yeah, I think in terms of atmosphere, like space and kind of like audible space and kind of like we that was a focus. We also wanted things to feel a bit more organic and you know, being made in the pandemic, Pathos, I think reflects that really well. Like it's a record that feels claustrophobic. There's always 10 different things going on. There's always layers and layers and layers. It is like oppressive sounding, and that's absolutely where we were at. That is how it felt to make that record for the most part. We had fun, but it was, you know, intense and it was not the most comfortable scenario in which to make an album. So to really kind of like in response to that, it feels like we had to make this record differently. We had to kind of focus on that space and atmosphere. And that was something that Danny and I had talked about ahead of time and just like being willing to let a song breathe and not just have to barrel forwards through to the next riff, through to the next idea. Like a song like Foreclosure on the record that is like a it's as close as we'll ever get to a Cult of Luna song. Like for me, it was all based around that one chord from the intro. And but again, on the last record, we would never have been able to distill a song down to something so simple or really like rely on the rely on that idea being enough to kind of carry a track. And yeah, it feels really nice to be able to do something that does feel different and does feel um powerful, I think is how I describe that song. But a lot of that is also down to the production. I think Joe did such an incredible job capturing not only how we sound, but how we wanted to sound. I've never felt like a record we've done has conveyed how the band how it feels to play in the band live like this has, but this is kind of like unprecedented for that. So I do think some of these songs without the job that Joe did on production would not work at all, or certainly wouldn't be as effective. So yeah, really have to shout out Joe Clayton for his incredible work on this. Like it is amazing to hear a record and not just hear mistakes or hear things I want to change or hear, the arguments that I lost in the songwriting process. Like it's nice to listen to a record and just hear it for what it is and be proud of it, you know?
Tell me a little bit about the gear. I want to talk about your gear. I'm going to ask about for the guitar nerds out there. I do have to ask, man, what'd you use for this album, man?
It's really funny because I think this record sounds the most like us and how we sound live. Pathos was made in the pandemic, so we used exclusively our own equipment, even down to it was our front of house at the time that engineered the album, and he used the mics that we used live on the drums. Like it was all that we had was our own rig. And I feel like this record used a lot of different stuff and sounds way more like us, which is funny. So we did the drums at the Nave Studio in Leeds, which is this gorgeous old converted church. Incredible, huge live room. Noah used his custom Natal drum kit. I don't know anything about drums, so it sounded great when he hit it. I know he's just started working with Zildjian for cymbals and had a bunch of new Zildjian stuff on there. Um, and really, because Joe's studio is like a basement in Manchester, and he's recorded some incredible drums there. But we really wanted to get that feel of a big live room, specifically for the drums, and it was awesome. Like I think it sounded great. And now he's actually just started putting up some clips of him tracking drums on his social media, and just like the raw sound from a camera in the room is wild. So I mean, that was a really good foundation for what the rest of the record became. And then for Guitar World, Joe has a bunch of custom weird fucking cabs. I think it was a mountain oversized 4x12 that we ended up using that just had so much low end for what was just a single guitar. Like, I think we even had to tone it down a little bit because it would have been too much when you start throwing everything else in. And then heads wise, we had a bunch of stuff. Josh from Silosis lent us his 5150, which I think did a bunch of the rhythm tones. We had a EVH 6505, so like really standard stuff. But then blended it with a few different bits that Joe had. Joe has a custom I don't even know what the brand is. I've got a photo of it. It just says no studio on it, which is his thing, which was we called it the slug cooker. But it sounded nuts. He's got a over like a Sound City kind of like clean, fucking massive bastard. I'm not the big gear guy in the band. I'm just like happy to rock up and be involved. So yeah, there was definitely a lot of kind of blending multiple tones for each guitar and just trying to give the two guitars a little bit of different characters and trying to find that balance between, you know, the sludgy, underground, horrible tone, but then the definition that some of the songwriting needs, but without then straying too far into super standard metalcore tone. It was a bit of a balancing act that we spent 2 or 3 days just really playing amps, recording little bits, listening back, and getting it to that point where it just felt right, you know? And then bass wise, Joe, we did two bass heads as we've done with everything. There was a dark glass little box that really kind of dealt with a lot of the dirty tones. We also had kind of Joe's full Pine bass rig, which is about 15 different pedals, and they were all messed around with. Again, it was that kind of process of experimentation to get whatever felt right. Um, and then kind of just your standard God, what's the fucking bass? I'm absolutely cooked this morning, apparently.
Couple more
The
coffees, mate. You will be right. It's usually about three
right?
or four before I'm ready to roll in the morning.
Exactly. What's the fucking standard bass head that everyone uses? Um, anyway, whatever it is, one of those. Just for like that kind of like real basic clean tone.
Probably like an Ampeg or something like that.
It was an Ampeg, yeah,
Yeah.
like an oversized Ampeg cab and head, and just again, it's like trying to blend that classic tone with something a bit more um modern. Um, and then yeah, like really from there, it was experimentation with pedals for all the clean tones. I think the 5150 did most of the
Yeah.
clean parts on the record, trying out different guitars. Kind of, there was no like, this is my rig and I'm going to use it. It was a bit of a communal, let's just get whatever works for the part, which is how we've always tried to be. But yeah, at one point we were putting an acoustic guitar through a HM2 for some like really weird, like distorted parts. We were doing I can't remember the name of the technique, but where you like a very speed on the drums. So we recorded a bunch of the drums faster and then slowed them down, like the verses in Foreclosure. Like there was a lot of like fun, weird stuff that we would just never have had the time to commit to on previous records that really found its way into this. And yeah, like I don't think any of it sounds too out there, but it's funny when you like there's tons of acoustic guitar, not just like the stuff that you hear, but like layers of acoustic guitar throughout the record that isn't immediately audible, but then we did a bunch of AB where like we were like, Joe, okay, play that, now mute it, and it does lose something. It's that kind of like intangible little thing. A lot of kind of electronics. We had our friend Tom who plays in Pine and makes music under Sulk Rooms as
Oh,
his
Rockstar.
solo project. He came in and did a bunch of piano, a bunch of keys, a bunch of noise stuff that
Yep.
again it's just those like extra little layers that we have never had the time or inclination to commit to before. So yeah, it's a lot of smaller things that are a bit more subtle that, you know, surprising even to me, really made a difference when we were kind of going throughout the mixing process.
Yeah, I love the little bits like with Let Us Live. You had Carla come in and there was a little bit with her in it as well, and Tom Ragsdale, all the other bits, mate. We could talk all day. I'm gonna let you get another coffee or two before the next one. Massive, massive thanks, Brady Deeprose, for joining me for number 666 Killer. Thank you so much, mate. Brady, any last words, shout outs, thank yous, or anything else you want to add in, mate?
Yeah, absolutely. Just like everyone from the label and the kind of like wider family of the band that have helped us make this happen has been fucking insane. Like we have such an amazing group of people that kind of came together. This is not just the four of us, like this is everyone that was involved. But then also if people are listening in Australia, we also have pre-orders available via Imprint merch, so you can get vinyl and CDs and merch and not have to pay insane US or European import charges, which is nice. Um, and we are working on coming back to Australia next year to play some shows. So hopefully that will be the case.
I know you guys are busy trying to get down under. I knew that was going to happen, mate, so I didn't want to hit you up. Everyone else, the new album does drop October 24th through Nuclear Blast. You're all going to want to grab it and crank it for the neighbours. Cheers, Brady.